out on a lot of childhood stuff because I had responsibilities. I was helping my mom cook dinners from the age of 9 or 10. I knew from really young I loved cooking.
You have the absolute honor of having the global executive chef of Brunch and Cake, Carmen Landsberg. You recently had the opportunity to work with a megastar, Tyra Banks. How was it to work with her?
Surprisingly pleasant, but she does give you that badass bitch.
What would you say have been sort of the biggest challenges?
I would say I think my biggest challenges, like...
Welcome back to the Chef JKP Podcast. And on the show today, we have the absolute honor of having the global executive chef of Brunch and Cake, the one and only Carmen Landsberg. Carmen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really nervous, as you know, but I'm super excited. Like I told you before, I should have been on here a long time ago.
So, it's all good. We've got you now. Thank God.
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
First things first, can you tell me all about your childhood food memories?
So I have quite like a lot of memories, different memories. I think I've always been surrounded by food, but I think the memories that really stand out for me is like really spending time. Like we always used to go visit my gran and my uncle in Zim. So my uncle used to look after my gran basically. And so they had like the most amazing country house like ever. Like even till today, I say to my husband, I wish I could have taken you there. It's amazing. And there, because of course, you know, it's a bit of, you know, poverty and it's not so good there. But they always had a very sustainable like plot, basically like a land where they had their own spring water and we could walk down and see the water and that would generate to the house basically.
Wow.
They had wood-fired like heaters to make hot water. So I was learned from a young age like how to work the, you know, drop the wood into the tank and like to generate heat. I think I was about 7, no, even younger. I was about 5 or 6 when I seen a chicken get slaughtered. A little bit mortified, but I was always curious. I was never scared of those kind of things. I used to, I wouldn't say forage with him, but like he had a really good vegetable garden. And that really inspired me because they had such limited resources and just, it wasn't as easy like back home. So I'm from Durban, from KwaZulu-Natal, and there you can go to the shop like normal and you don't always at that age have that understanding of like appreciation of everything in terms of food. It's food, it feeds you, you know that your mother cooks it for you. But that really, that experience just really opened like things up for me. And although I don't have chefs, I'm the only chef in my family, but I have loads, like my brother, super passionate about food. He always pushed me and like, always like a little like a secret competition between us. And even now that I'm a chef, he goes, oh, I can still make a better bra than you anyway. I can still make a better steak than you. So you know what? And he probably could on a bra, but you know, I'd whoop him in the kitchen.
But that's an amazing thing, you know, like because so many chefs would have not had that sort of opportunity to be working on land and seeing all these sorts of things and, you know, growing things from scratch. I think that's a huge educational piece that we miss nowadays.
Yeah.
You know?
I think I was like super lucky. And also, I think till this day, I get so excited. Like they'll sell this property now since my gran passed away. And the property is just too massive. It's like a bed and breakfast now. Like they converted it. It was like, it has a massive library, probably the size of this room, with just chef books. And like the first book I ever picked up was a Larousse.
Wow.
A limited edition, which will probably be mine, but it's like one of the first of 10 copies back in like the 50s even. Like it's much thinner than it is now. It's a much more weird to, it's like a bit weird to read it. It's not like a comfortable read, but it is fascinating because it's just really old and like, but it is so insane to see how far food goes back and like how insane, like it's just, yeah, so I had really those kinds of experiences. And I think he really ignited something from young. And I like to say that food chose me in a way, because I've done many things in my life. I've had quite a colorful upbringing, not, good, great, amazing memories, but I've also had a lot of hardships where I've had to work really super hard for what I wanted. I mean, I've done dancing, I've done modeling, yeah, my mother's a beautician. I've done beauty. I've got all my degrees in like nails, eyelashes, but for some reason I've always just come full circle back to the kitchen, the yearning to be there. I mean, freaking hell, people cry when they see, I don't know, sad movies. I cry when I watch MasterChef and they're in that competition and you're like, oh, they get through.
Yeah, but it's amazing,
like,
no?
I know that hard work. Even before I went to chef school, I used to cry just watching that, and I was like, I want that, you know what I mean?
But what were the types of food you were having? So sort of growing up in your adolescent years as a teenager, what were the sort of foods that you were sort of going towards? Was it still super fresh? Was it street foods? What did you like?
I like quite a different, look, I'll be honest, I like exploring with flavors. From a young age, you can ask anyone that knows me. I wasn't always my mom was a great cook, but she did cook your normal mashed potatoes, dinner, kind of, beef stroganoff, very simplistic. Like I would say, although I had all these influences, I didn't have like a broad influence. It was still very much, okay, bra on the weekends. Do you know what I mean? From my uncle, I got the aspect like fresh, limited, how to have few ingredients and make them amazing because we only have those limitations. And then from going home and basically just I used to knock things together that people think like, what the hell are you doing? Like till this day, I love peanut butter with mayonnaise and cheese on toast. Crazy, I know. I used to like random stuff, but I will say what is deep rooted is the proper South African bra, working with meat, like, you know what I mean? Not too many things, which is funny because the influence that I've had is a real contrast to me as a chef now. If you look at my food now, it's colorful, it's creative, it's still a bit wacky like me, which does represent, I like pushing the boundaries a bit. I like making people a bit angry, like, screwing up those classics. How dare she? Like, that's a lasagna. She's really messed this up. I'm like, just get people talking a bit, but I've had many different things, but I would say the proper South African, how you say in my language, rice, vleis and aardappels, like basically in direct translation, it's rice, meat, potatoes on a plate, kind of. So, but I did take parts of my experiences, not always the inspiration, but I think lots of my stuff came from watching TV, the Jamie Olivers of the world, like the Nigella, that was when I was that age, that was my influence. You know what I mean? Like I was I know it's a bit controversial now, but Jamie Oliver, I still quite like his business, like how he looks at things from a business aspect. I mean, I think if you Google it now, he's still probably the richest chef or one of the richest chefs still. I know that people are like, oh, you messed school dinners up for everyone in the UK, but
not necessarily messed it up, but at the end of the day, he was passionate. And don't forget, he has 4 kids. So he was passionate about what he was trying to do. Yeah,
and I do take quite a lot from that. I do like his more professional. I'm not really a fan of this 15-minute mix-up beat-ups of things.
Yeah.
But I do like his more professional books, like the more complex ones a little bit. I like very much a home style. I mean, my dream is to have a restaurant where it's not an individual seated restaurant. My dream is to bring people together. For me, that's something important. I think that comes from sitting at a table with the family and you have that togetherness, and although whatever shit's going on in the world, you have that together. Let's come together, have a good meal, chat about stuff. I do like tapas style things. I'm not really a person that likes one big meal. So for a long time, I did like Spanish. To be honest, I don't know where that came from, but I think it's someone that gave me a tapas book. And because I started my own catering business at 16, I got very involved in small bites and little things. And so, yeah, I've had like crazy. I've had in like one specific cuisine, I would say. I feel like that's tough for me to answer.
But Carmen, look, tell me then, why did you make that decision at the age of 16, which is extremely young, to then go into business and do catering? Because, most adolescents or kids would obviously be working or whatever, but at the same time they would be going off to college or whatever it may be. But why did you decide to do that? Because it's quite a responsible decision at that age.
Yeah, so look, like I said, I had a colorful like little journey, to be honest. Like I've had an amazing childhood, but I've also had a really hard kind of sections in my life that I would say. And coming from a single mom, I had to work a lot. And I think my brother quite inspires me because we didn't have a good dad. Okay, let's not get to, I don't want to get to, but we didn't have a good dad as an example. And that came with a lot of other responsibilities. So to be honest, by the time I was 16, I was pretty old in my mind. I missed out on a lot of childhood stuff because I had responsibilities. I mean, I was helping my mom cook dinners from the age of 9 or 10. Like she was like out working 2 jobs and trying to put me through school. And like I just was cooking from a young age. Not good, not probably very good, but I could work a stove. When she got home, I could make a dinner. And then I knew from really young, I loved cooking. Like I don't know how or where, or I just knew that. I didn't even know, like, when I started my business, I was going to be, well, no, when I started my business, I knew I was going to be a chef because I interviewed 2 years before for the chef school that I wanted to go to. And that's what transpired my business as well. And I knew that my mom couldn't afford all of it by herself. And looking back now, probably, I think I was a lot more supportive but looking back now, probably the money was just like a little bit of money. But you know what? I took all my money. I saved all what I could. I gave it to my mom, whether it was just to help me with my boarding or whether it was just to, give me pocket money or whatever. But I knew like that was going toward my education of being a chef. But I think that's kind of what, like, I knew that I didn't want my mom to do that on her own. And I loved cooking. I just started randomly. I had a good influence from a lady. Her name was Lisa. And I used to just spend time with her at her house, like, doing random cooking stuff. She really inspired me. And she was a German lady. And she used to do cooking classes from her house. And I used to attend those cooking classes. And she never used to make me pay for them. I used to just go for free. She used to just be like, no, it's okay. Keep your money.
What a
put
legend.
it toward your education, or just very, and that's really also, I was like, I need to make this business. I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. I just was like, I'm doing catering, and I started catering for all my mom's customers in her shop.
Okay.
She had she's quite successful in our town. So she does quite there's quite good amount of people with good reputations that I was catering for, that was paying actually quite good money. And
so you'd go to the house, essentially?
Yeah, I'll go to the house. I'll prep everything at home. I'll pack it into my boxes. I'll get a lift with my mom there or whatever, set it up, or back then I was just trying to get whatever lift I could. But my mom helped me a lot. And then because some of them were her friends, they would drop me off at home, basically.
Nice.
I mean, I did and then I did some sushi courses in between this, not professional, but of course in chef school you learn so many different things. And then I started doing sushi, just fun things. I would prep the rice and the veggies and lay it out on trestle tables. But I used to do it for random birthdays or just random people who want to come and learn how to make sushi from home, basically.
But pretty cool, no?
Yeah, I just used to set up my trestle tables, get 10 people together and fake it till I make it.
But was there much of an appetite for people to sort of want to learn to cook?
Yeah, there was. I mean, then eventually my business, the catering got a bit down in seasons, and then I started going to people's houses to teach their kids some cooking. I taught some of their nannies how to cook, like more nutritional dishes, because like I was just chatting with people in my mom's shop and was like, yeah, I wish I had more time to cook dinner when I get home for the kids and stuff. So sometimes I used to go to people's houses, teach their like nannies the basic, or even do some cookies with the kids, and then I would leave their fridge stocked up with some food for the week, and then I would say, okay, you need to now make these same dishes next week. And so essentially my business grew into not just catering, but into anywhere where I could basically find money and also do what I love and do what I know, basically. And then in the end, I had to end that because then 2 years just flew by, and I ended up going to chef school.
So how was that then when you decided to go to chef school?
Yeah.
You'd already been in business for 2 years or so.
Yeah.
So how was that for you when you went in? Because there's a lot of theory, a lot of practical, but did you find yourself being a bit more advanced than the rest of the chefs when you first started?
A little bit, but I will say that my group of the year was like quite strong chefs. I think I was a lot more mature and I was a lot more hungry. Look, we were 5 girls, and I knew that this is what I've got. Like, I don't know how to say this without sounding a bit, I don't know, but I went to private school with wealthy people. I wasn't wealthy. I went to chef school with really wealthy kids, and I wasn't wealthy. So my focus was totally different to someone else's focus in a way. Like some of them were dicking around a bit, to be honest. And I was there like, I'm on a mission. Like I couldn't afford to not take things seriously. But I will say it was different. I feel like I was a bit naughty in chef school, but I feel like it was the first time I left home. I was 18. I was out of the house. I knew now I had to be an adult. But in some parts, I kind of became a child. Like I went drinking loads when we could after chef school. And I have great memories. Actually, one of my funny stories are going to be from this. But I loved it. I feel like it was the first time that I could like actually see the right way to do things, because I was just doing things what I think, you know what I mean? Like I was just like doing what I think is the right thing, but then actually going there and learning the technicalities, learning some business even in this, and understanding better, and just doing that, not having to. Chef school for me was amazing because I didn't feel like I was having to do it because I was working to save or something. I could just be a chef and enjoy the experience. And I won Best Chef Garden of the Year, I must say. We had our own chef garden in chef school, and we were totally responsible for 1 year of looking after that garden with our herbs. So you start your day one and you're like, okay, you're going to do a herb garden. What are the vegetables you want to do? And of course, in the year that changes.
But you already knew, right?
Yeah.
So
I always went hunting with the boys because it was so male dominant. I was like, I want to be fearless. I feel like I was always quite feminine still, but I'm not feminine like what you would think. I have really a potty mouth, if I'm honest.
All chefs do.
I really love the word shit all the time. But yeah, so I'm a little bit like a rough around, but I always like, I fished from a young age. So when they were like, oh, we're going to go deep sea fishing, I was like, I can tie a knot. I was excited. I was like, pick me, I can go. I've done fishing before. So it's also a bit different from the girls, like a little bit like, but I mean, I loved chef school. It was such a different thing from having to go from a business and being like, you're working towards something for this chef school, basically. And when I got there, I just tried to make the most of it and actually just chill a bit, like not take things too seriously, because sometimes I get in my head. Sometimes I want to overcomplicate things. Even still to today, I want it to be so amazing and so like don't want to disappoint that I get in my head and I sometimes overcomplicate. So when I went to chef school, I really knew that I just wanted to learn and like take it all in for what it was, basically.
Well, look, I think the other thing is about chef school is because, look, for me, I did the same as you. I worked at the age of 16. I was working, and I didn't get into college till I was 18, basically.
Okay.
But so when I got into college, it was amazing. But
Yeah.
I knew I had to push and learn as much as I could. Still be a bit silly and stupid, which is fine, it's normal.
Yeah.
But it sort of gave you like a huge amount of things to sort of focus on.
Yeah.
But then after culinary school, what did you decide to do?
After chef school, I decided I want to go to Cape Town because, of course, being from Durban, well, actually Richards Bay, but no one knows, it's like a dark hole. No one knows where's Richards Bay. So Durban would probably be the nearest one that most people would know.
So if people don't know, how far is Durban to Cape Town?
Oh, far. I took a 23-hour drive in my car in a Taz Toyota, my first car.
23-hour drive.
23-hour drive. Of course, just an hour and a half flight. But I did a road trip with my mother and her best friend, and I took my car, my little Taz Toyota, and we took my car all the way to Cape Town, drove it there on a little road trip, 2-day road trip. But yeah, it's 23-hour drive. But it's an hour and a half flight, basically. So, but from Durban to Joburg is probably also another popular one, Johannesburg.
Yeah.
That's a 5-hour trip, basically. So right on the beach, on the north coast,
And why so far? Why did you decide to go so far?
Because Cape Town obviously has a good reputation. There's lots of now, back then I always knew I was going to be more of a home. I love the home style cooking, big, full, homey. Shove it in the oven, let the oven do the work for hours. You know what I mean? I love the slow processes. I love the tender love and care, basically. And I just knew back then, I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in as a chef. Did I want to go fine dining? Did I want to go casual? I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to be a chef, but I just didn't know what route am I going to take. And Durban at the time was very small. Cape Town is the place to be. Everyone's Cape Town's amazing. So many different cultures in South Africa. There's crazy. You have Durban is good, Indian, Cape Town. You've got so many different cultures that impact you. But Cape Town was the place. It's the capital. You want to be there. It's where rising chefs are, and it's, it is really nice. And now you've got Franschhoek as well, which is countryside. And
I love a Franschhoek.
Oh, and you've got the vineyards with the restaurants on the vineyards, and that's something else. And so I knew that that's where I needed to go. Not why or any, I just knew I need to go to Cape Town. That's going to be the place.
So you went to Cape Town.
Yes.
And what did you do?
I ran a page, so I got a job. I did by the way, I went to Cape Town without any job. I just went there. And then I started searching for a job. Eventually, after a week, I got an interview and I started my own little pastry. I was in charge of a pastry section in the restaurant. Not anything big or fancy. I mean, it was my very first job out of chef school. Real job. Not my own job.
Yeah.
Kitchen, industry. And I loved it. I really loved Cape Town, and I loved, it was difficult because, first of all, I have a much deeper passion for the hot side of cooking, the hot kitchen. That was my place. I was throw pots at me, throw knives, I'm fine. You know what I mean? I love the thrill. And pastry, for a while, I was this is a bit boring for me. Sorry, guys. Sorry, any pastry chefs. But I'm just joking. But I loved it. I learned so much. I just took it by the horns, and I was whatever I didn't know, I was researching. Whatever I couldn't do, I was practicing. I just was
So it was your first time in pastry?
Well,
officially?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It was my first time in pastry from chef school, and I was good. I can make a cake.
But how long were you there for?
About a year. About a year.
Okay.
About a year or so. But I really struggled to find, I don't know, a sense there, a sense of purpose there. I didn't feel yes, I know, look, I love my family, but I can live away from them. I know that, from being a chef and stuff, there's a lot of things that people always say to you, you're going to give up, like, oh, when I went for my interview at chef school, I was like, do you want me to come to the school? Like, are you trying to like petrify me? So I knew like there was things, but so moving away wasn't scary, but I never found the right influences. And like I said, because for so long I was so grown up, and then coming out of the house and being a little bit naughty and like, always still had the seriousness. But then I got to Cape Town and I was like, just hanging out with like no one who has the same passion as me. And like, there's so many versatile people there and personalities, but I wasn't finding like the chef community there. And some of the chefs that I was hanging about with, I know this sounds horrible, but wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't someone, I had loads of chefs, but you feel someone that inspires you, and you can feel someone that's, well, this is just a job because like I got into this kind of a thing. Like that, I do find that a lot in South Africa, you get super passionate people, but then you also just get like, well,
the day-to-day.
Was this or prison? I don't know. Right, I'm joking. That's dramatic, but it is kind of like that. You feel like it's like that. You just feel like, well, no, this is just like a job. So I just felt like I'm just not like, and I didn't have any support there. So it's not like I could leave the central of Cape Town and then just go somewhere in Franschhoek and try it out there. And like, I just didn't have the finance or the luxuries all the time. Like if I wanted to do something, I had to put all into that one thing basically. So I decided, no, look, I want to go back home. And at the time, my mom needed like a little bit of help as well. So I went, I don't know, weirdly into like beauty for a bit, but still then did cooking on the side.
Right.
Went back to like cooking on the side, doing some things again. And then I got quite a good job in a casino, which I was a F&B supervisor, not even a chef actually. So
was that mental?
That was crazy. I've seen some crazy things in a casino, like seriously crazy, like, just walking up and down the floor. But that did teach me a lot of other things, like for the industry. I think that actually quite set me up for like a business outlook of things in hospitality. And I had a very good mentor. His name was Clinton. He was hardcore. He was really he was hardcore F&B, like just crazy. Like he had a real passion for it, but he was really super passionate about front of house and like the inventory side of things and like more like other things that I just didn't really care about.
So very methodical.
Very methodical.
Data-driven.
Very data-driven. Things all I'm all for that. All things I hate.
But quite cool, no, to learn from someone like that.
Very cool. Casino environment, quite cool. You start learning how to deal with VIP people and like big spenders.
And drunk people.
And how to deal with conflict well, which I'm quite I don't know. I'm good with conflict, but I can also really quickly tell you to off,
yes,
basically. So, but it did teach me patience, a lot of patience. Actually, I was quite feisty young person, like, oh, female, I need to be angry and try. Like now I'm quite different, actually. Now I'm just like, I don't think anger is going to get you much further than just be chill, communicate. But for a while I was like, bah.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean?
And how long were you there for?
Oh, I was also there for only like a year because I kept getting into trouble. Like I kept going into the kitchen the whole time. I'd be like, oh, front of house duties, okay, do my stuff. And like, although I found it fascinating, I didn't have his level of passion for this. And I always because from the front of house to get to my office at the time, you had to walk through the kitchen.
Oh. So you were like, hello.
And I was like, hi guys, always so friendly with the chefs. I was super good friends with the executive chef. I was spending more time in his office learning about hotel P&Ls and like what's going on there, how can I, better my food costs and learn and wastages. And although I had a good foundation of that from chef school, but yeah, I didn't really do it that intensely, even in my job in Cape Town. My executive chef was doing that stuff. Do you know what I mean? I was just running a pastry department. So I didn't really do the food cost stuff. I did my wastages but like they are still a bit young and not there yet. And this is where I gained that experience in the casino, basically. And a lot of the times, some of the chefs wouldn't pitch up for work. And I was like really eager to try and get a job in the kitchen. So I'd often like take off my suit and like tie up my hair and be like, oh, the chefs are not here. I better get this buffet ready. And it was weird because I didn't have to do that. Like I could just call someone and be like, oh, well, none of the breakfast people showed up. So I guess the hotel won't have a buffet today. But because I was so stressed and I never wanted to let anyone down or I was like, well, I've got the skill. Why would I just not I can do this. I was there doing the fryers, dropping it, putting it in the heating things. Because for the buffet, you've got those massive warmers, right? Dumping the sausages on the flat top, going. And then the F&B manager would come and be like, okay, the 10 o'clock, the 8 o'clock chefs are coming. We need to bang out the breakfast. I was like, oh, I've done it already. Just need someone on the omelette section. And they're like, the hell? What?
But why would you get in trouble? You get in trouble because you weren't supposed to do that?
I would get into trouble because I found myself a lot in the kitchen, not on the floor.
Right.
And also, yes, in terms of safety, they didn't know that I was an experienced chef, to that degree.
Okay, I got you.
So although they have my CV and everything, but because I was on a front of house position, you know what I mean? I don't think they actually knew my history.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I'm a chef. I can do this. And they're like, you're what now? I was like, yes, it's in my CV, But yeah, from safety aspects, of course, I didn't have a uniform, but I would put the apron on I had long pants on and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't do everything to the T, but I would chop the tomatoes to make sure that the mise en place is done so they could just do it on the live cooking station.
It's still very responsible, Carmen, for you to do that. As you said, you didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you would just switch on, bang, get it done.
Yeah, 100%.
That's quite interesting. So after that, did you decide to sort of stay within food and beverage front of house, or was the kitchen calling you back?
Oh no, the kitchen was always calling me back. And I think in that moment I was like, I need to leave this town. When all this was happening, because now this casino job that I had was not even in Durban, it was back in Richards Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, there's nothing here that's going to put I need to be pushed. Surely, I kept asking myself all the time, surely this can't be it. I'm 20 years old and I'm on a high level, surely this can't be this easy. I've heard all my role models barely starving, trying to make ends meet, trying to be if you read Marco Pure White's biography or any of these kinds of chefs, there's a real struggle truly behind trying to make it big time. And I was like, I need to leave. This town is too small for me now. And I knew, and then that's when I took a job in Durban, only a couple hours away from my town. But I was like, you know what? It's fine. It was a really great cafe. There were a few of them all around Cape Town, Pretoria, Johannesburg. And I was like, this is going to be the ticket for me. So then I took a head chef position.
So first head chef position?
First head chef position.
At what age?
This was around 20, I think. Around 20. No, maybe even, about 19,
right,
20.
Okay.
To be honest with you, it was fresh out of chef school, but about 19, 20, yeah.
And tell me about the sort of the menu of this cafe. Was it quite hardcore? Was it just sort of breakfast, lunch and dinner?
It was a lot like a Leto, to be honest. I would compare it. It was a cafe style. We made all of our own breads in-house. And actually the bakery was the show of the restaurant.
Right.
And we would have a very family orientated. So the kids would come up to the bread station and we had one chef giving kids doughs and they would make their own breads, funny shapes, bake it. You know what I mean? It was very family. We did lots of breakfast, not so much dinner. It wasn't dinner. It would close at about 7, 8 o'clock, but it was very breakfast orientated. And that for me was the first time I was really in a massive kitchen environment, running my own team for the first time. And I remember saying to my mom, I was like, I don't have the experience for this. Like, how am I going to do this? And then I remember her saying, well, take the job now and learn later. You've got the basics. You can do it. You're so hungry. You're so motivated. And I was like, I haven't even been like a CDP yet.
But how was your, because, you know, if I sort of think back to myself as at 19 or 20 years old,
Yeah.
I was a psycho, like proper psychopath. Just because I wanted to push hard.
Yeah.
So I think if I was going to be a head chef at that age, I think it would have been nuts for me.
Yeah.
But how was your management style at that age?
Oh, nuts. Definitely a psychopath. Definitely had some psychopathic traits. I had one female, which was, she was so difficult, to be honest, to manage, and didn't want to take instruction from another female.
Right.
And it was the first time they had a female running the kitchen as well on that level. So in the beginning, it was really hard for me. Like, no one would listen to me. Like, on purpose, they would delay food. They weren't pushing the food to me on the expo. Nothing. They would just like make it purposely hard. And I remember that time we had like this ticket system with the screen. And I think till now I have PTSD about that screen. I hate it. If anyone tells me I'm going to put a screen that changed colors in your kitchen, I'll tell you, please do not. Those colors freak me out. I'm like, oh my God, it's red. It's red. What am I going to do? It's red. Shit. I hated that. And those screens gave me serious anxiety,
Wow.
I'm telling you. But I struggled in the beginning. And then I realized I need to be a psychopath. And in South Africa, it's a bit different. Like, oh, funny story, actually. It's not part of my funny stories, but how crazy it was, actually, just to give you like a little bit of an overview. Some of the staff, because of like lack of salaries and like things like that, I found before in one of the girls specifically, a whole massive chicken in her butt, like by her backs, like in her pants, not in her butt, sorry, in her pants, to steal it, basically, to take it home. So I was like, and it's very difficult because like there's so many laws in South Africa that you need to follow. Like you can't just be like, you fired for stealing, basically. It's like a lot more complicated. You have to go through a process.
Right.
And anyway, but yeah, then I went psycho. Then I realized psycho isn't helping. And eventually I think I just gained respect from working twice harder than any one of them.
Right.
I was the first one in, I was the last one out. And for a long time, like, I would get sick a lot because of the hours that I would try and push. And then, I still went out drinking, to be honest. I would go out on the piss until 3 o'clock in the morning and then be in the kitchen.
At 7.
Yeah, 7, like a couple hours of sleep, wash my hands, done, just went for a shower, basically, and went back in there, and it was, no one would ever see. Like, no one would even tell that, like, I came from no ways. Like, I was really still on it in the kitchen, even if I'd gone on a little bit of a night out or a piss or whatever. But eventually it just came from hard work. The respect that I got was just from adjusting, being a psychopath, then trying another approach of not being a psychopath, and then being then too nice, and then realizing, well, now they're just running all over me. So I just tried many different things, to be honest. I just was like, okay, this is not working. I need to try another approach. And eventually I just worked hard. And when they would scrub the floor, I was scrubbing the floor. I didn't portray like I'm your head chef, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, do as I say. No, I was literally if they were on their knees, I was on my knees. And eventually I had like a really good relationship with my team there. And it was quite hard to leave in the end. But it was one of these things that I couldn't grow. Like when I took the head chef position, I was like, that's like, there's no way I'm going to go from here. They have one outlet. The only way I knew that if I wanted to make a mark is I needed to get into into Vovatello, the franchise, basically, not like, like part of the franchisor, basically. How do I shift to Cape Town, basically? But then my dad passed away, and then I got an opportunity in UAE, and I was like, I'm taking this. I got like one interview, and I was actually trying to get on the yachts at the time. Like I was like, I want to leave. I'm happy in my job, but this is not it. Like I kept feeling like an empty space. Like how can this be the best that I can be? Like this doesn't feel like the best. And I wasn't that fortunate always to have I didn't have a family that could travel a lot, and I didn't have worldwide experience. I'm not going to lie. Like my experience and my hunger and stuff comes from opening books and fantasizing. Do you know what I mean? A lot of my friends, I'm going to Europe and I'm going to Spain and I'm going to Rome and I've still not been to Italy before. Do you know what I mean? Like and then obviously when I came here, the last 8 years has been, obviously you come here and you're like, I'm moving here to make the best, career for myself, but I'm coming here to travel. Coming because it's a central hub. I'm going to get to see lol. Lol.
But when you then, eventually came to the UAE.
Yeah. Sorry.
And that must have been really exciting because obviously a huge change from South Africa.
Oh, yeah.
To what you were used to. Seeing the different types of setups, obviously the life is very different. So when you first came here, what was your first job?
Private chef. I was so excited. So my first job, I basically took the only interview that I had, which was the first job that I had.
Right.
So I got the job. I had one interview. I did a cook-off. I got the job as a private chef for a family.
Okay. So again, almost an environment that you knew in a way, cooking for people, cooking for families. How was it?
Oh, definitely not what I was used to. I can tell you that much. How you've explained now, I was like, this is going to be my element. I've been doing this for I know, and I can, and I'm great with people. Like I'm a little bit of a social butterfly. I love engaging with people. I do like those elements. I think that comes from my public speaking that I used to do. But anyway, that's a whole separate thing. But I'm comfortable with, being with people, introducing myself. I don't have a fear actually when I've got a bit older, I've adapted a weird fear of, putting myself out there. But anyway, I thought, this is it. This is right up my alley. I'm going to ace this. I'm going to love it. Oh, what a rude awakening that was for me.
So
tell me, horrible.
What happened? But why was it horrible?
So basically, I didn't feel like a chef, to be honest. They didn't really respect any elements of what a chef is. I felt more like their personal assistant kind of so instead of being a chef for the family, I felt a bit used, to be honest. So look, there was always something wrong with something. And when I took the interview, I didn't know they had so many dietary restrictions and so many different things that were way out of I've come from South Africa. Some of the terminologies they were using for food, I was like, where have I been all my life? Why do I not know these vegetables and stuff? Why have I never heard of these things that they want me to make? You know what I mean? So I am grateful for the experience. Don't get me wrong. I'm so grateful because that really pushed me to experience, open different cuisines up. What am I going to make? Something Asian this time, or they ate very clean, which for me is such a transition because in South Africa, it's spices, it's flavors, it's sauces. It's you know what I mean? It's totally different. But luckily I do have that from my uncle and I have that. But so many years have gone by, from being 5 and 6 and having that and then having different influences as you grow up. But I was like, okay, fine. But then vegan. Never heard of what vegan is.
Right. So you had to almost re-educate yourself.
Basically, it
on
was,
the job.
It was so on the job, seriously. And then later it came out that they don't eat this, they're gluten intolerant. I was like, what the hell is gluten intolerant? I was like, no one in South Africa even knows what's...
Right.
If you tell someone I'm vegan in South Africa, they'll be like, don't worry, I'll make you a ribba or something like that big fat Greek wedding. You eat no meat? It's okay, I make lamb.
Yeah.
So it's you know what I mean? You have that anyway, so I had to re-educate myself. But then eventually, like, there was so much nitpicking on everything. Like, it really broke down my self-esteem as a chef. Like, I felt like everything I was doing was not like good enough for this or that. And then eventually I could see what was happening, because then it became like, okay, can you teach the nanny how to, and now they're quite wealthy. They have a couple nannies, and like they have a specific teacher teaching the kids like private lessons after school. The kids at like 4 or 5 years old are learning Mandarin. And I'm like, oh, I was eating dirt at this age. Like, I don't know, okay, I wasn't, but you know what I mean? You're like, I wasn't learning Mandarin. I was like, I'm sure this kid can make its own lunch. Like, what do you need me for? But then eventually, every day I had to type out exactly all the ingredients, everything that was going into the food, the methods, everything. Like, also, this lady thought that, I don't know, people were like out to like get them the whole time. I was like, I know you like really rich and stuff, but I'm sure no one even knows who you are. Sorry, I know I'm whispering, but I'm just like, I was just like, oh, you know, I think you've been a bit paranoid. But anyway, eventually after 50 recipes, it became, no, have 3 days off. Okay, no, just come in to see what the nanny made, to see if it's correct and give her some notes. And then it became, oh no, you can have now the weekend off. And I was like, I'm getting fired.
Yes,
I was like, I'm getting, I don't know what fired looks like, but I'm pretty sure this is what it looks like.
So what did you decide?
Nothing. I just, at the time, I knew none of the laws. I knew nothing. Like, of course, even their assistants weren't even telling me all of the things. I was so new here. I was in the job for 6 months when I left. It was a very quick.
Right.
It was a very long 6 months. I won't lie.
Sure.
But then they were like, oh, your 6-month probation is over. And I was like, what does that mean? What is obviously I had no idea that, you know, after 7 days, you know, like all the laws that you like, okay, if I don't like you after 2 weeks, you can you can leave basically. Yes. And then you know that after 6 months is your probation. So only after that is a lot harder for them to fire you. But before 6 months, they can basically just be like, well, sorry, we're not going to proceed with your contract or whatever. And then they kind of took the approach of, well, we travel for the next 6 months of the year, you know, from July until December, we're away, we're in this part of the world where they're from, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say, you know. But then I just waited till they fired, to be honest. I was like, I'm not going to leave. But I knew at the back, I was like stressing. I was like, I was on... I don't know, I was sending my CV to places in Dubai that I didn't even know existed or where it was. Like at the time, I had no idea what Palm was, the Palm or like anything. I was just so focused in this private chef thing. And like, I was really quite like, because I was like, this is the only, I need to make this work. And although I wasn't happy and stuff, and I just was a bit scared. I didn't look for something else until I was like trying to find my own feet in this country, basically. Little bit naive, I would say, from like me coming from South Africa to here. I feel looking back, I was quite naive on knowing like what's going on, and little bit lacked, although I was fussy and probably a psycho, but in that environment, I really felt like I lacked like a bit of a backbone. You know what I mean? I was like, in my mind, I was like, surely I know that this can't be right. But anyway, long story short, I ended up leaving there and I found a job in Leto through Facebook. A chef, I won't forget, his name is Chef Vusi. He was a chef and then went into like a, what is it, like recruitment, recruitment. Okay. And he reached out to me on Facebook, and then that's how I got the job with Leto, basically. And then that's when shit got real for me.
So what happened in Leto? What was the job?
Oh, so basically they gave me a sous chef position, and it was a joint sous chef position with someone else because they couldn't really make up their mind. And it was also another female. But knowing me, I'm quite a strong character. I mean, like pretty much I just promoted myself basically. I was like, I just thought I was the head chef because I honestly did think so. Like only later on they were like, you know that this is like a joined, need to work as a team. I was like, oh, well, I mean, I thought I was working as a team, but I thought I was always getting the shit for everything. So I was like, well, I may as well then take responsibility. And Anyway, later on, I just did automatically get I was way more hungry. I was just like, you know what I mean? I just worked for it really hard. I mean, I used to sleep in the shop. I had no idea what pest control was. What is a grease trap? I mean, in South Africa, you just pump it down, pump it down the drain and it goes somewhere. You don't have grease traps and pest controls and hoods. And I was like, what the?
But at the same time, that must have been once you got the job, a huge relief, obviously, off your mind.
Really.
And then to go into a brand which is essentially an international brand
and well established at the time from London.
You have all of the correct steps in place, like HR, like the training, all of these things. So that must have sort of settled you quite nicely into the job. And how long were you there for?
About 3 years. About 3 years I was with Leto.
So what were you doing? Like, you must have been traveling a lot, going to different places, openings, things like that.
So I didn't travel that much because I was a bit younger. So I got here when I was like, 25, 6, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, anyway, I've just like lost this track. It was really nice and like it was great. And I didn't travel that much. My first job was with Leto opening City Walk.
Right.
Then it was MOE. But at the time there was a group, their version of a group executive chef. Mm-hmm. So I knew I had to work hard, but I worked really hard. Like a lot of recipes are also developed and like, it's like we were 2 executive chefs in 2 different countries, but kind of competing a little bit. So it was nice in a sense, but like it also felt like I was very independent here. But I didn't travel like a lot in terms of I did my training in the UK. I stayed there for like a month or 2 or so, came back knowing the brand, ready to, just kill it basically. I was like, I've got this, basically. And it's right up my alley. It's amazing breakfast. It was, in terms of plating, was exactly where I was at the time. And the style, and I loved it. I was like, okay, I hope they're not going to ask me to make all these cakes. But, obviously not. They had a very amazing pastry chef. But yeah, like all my journey with Leto was within UAE, and then I got to travel to Oman, obviously.
Nice.
And that was like the first travel I did with, obviously I tried a lot to go to Saudi, but at that time I was under 30, I was unmarried. There was a lot of other rules now that they weren't that easy up on. Like, they were like, well, if she's unmarried, she needs to be 30. And if she's not 30, well, so what happened was we kind of changed Dubai into a training hub for Saudi, for Kuwait, for other places, basically, that they were. But Leto is basically, they own all of them. I think there's like one franchise, like that's not directly owned by them. But everything around the world is basically owned by the owner. It's not franchised out. But yeah, in terms of like traveling, before I left, it was only just crazy expanding. But all of UAE almost, I'd started Blue Waters, but then half of Blue Water started collapsing. And then at that time, I didn't actually do the opening, but I did all the pre-opening preparation, like ordered the equipment, got the equipment inside there, but then they had to shut it down. Like we couldn't operate at all on that end of where Leto is on Blue Waters, basically. And then at that time, that's when Brunch and Cake kind of approached me. And
so how did they approach you, first of all?
Oh, I love you, Amjad, don't kill me. But Amjad really, so someone actually else approached me, Gavin. So he approached me and was like, I'm looking for an exec. I don't know how they found me, to be honest. I don't know where. I think because Leto had quite a good reputation, and knowing Amjad now, I think he was like, but I was also not, I was a first pick, but then I was also a last pick. So it's quite a funny story because one of the other chefs that was on this podcast actually got offered the position before I did, but then turned it down because they were in another stage of their life, basically. But I don't know where they found me, where they heard from me, but Amjad asked me, oh, can we just have a chat? Can we just have a chat? Casual chat. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I had no interview prepared. I didn't give a CV.
Did you know who he was?
No idea who he was.
So it was just like some
Random guy.
Yeah.
Well, Gavin obviously was like, the owner wants to meet with you. I was like, oh, I'm big timer. Like, you know what I mean? So then I met with Amjad, and we had an instant like connection in terms of like, he was speaking what I wanted to do, and that wasn't his like full-on expertise. And you could see that he was ready to be like, I'm going to guide you in what I kind of want. But he was like, look, I'm buying this franchise from Barcelona. So for those who don't know, Brunch and Cake is from Barcelona. It started out as a cupcake shop and then developed into salads and light meals. But until today, they close at 4:00 in the afternoon. It was never their trade to compete with Spanish cuisine at all. So a lot of people are like, yeah, but your brand's Spanish, but you have no Spanish. But because it started in Spain, I think the founder wanted to specifically not have Spanish food.
Right.
We didn't want to compete with the
Quite cool,
tapas
actually.
bars. And I mean, go to Spain, everyone knows tapas. Like you know what I mean? If that's not your 100% niche, you'll be scrutinized.
Yeah.
So he just started as a cupcake shop, and it was like a vegan thing, and then like healthy and vegan. And that's when vegan was coming out. And I was like, what the hell is this vegan thing everyone's talking about?
But once you had that initial chat with Amjad, when was your mind like, okay, I'm in?
Truthfully, I went to Oman for opening, and there was basically the executive chef of Leto was kind of like leaving. There was word of him leaving, and there was a new person coming in basically. And it hit me a bit hard because I basically feel like I gave a lot of my first UAE experience, like, because I came here with a bag, no support, nothing, knew no one, nothing. I literally just came with a bag and was like, well, I'm here now. And with Leto, I gave a lot of myself. Like, I would say I probably worked 50 times harder than I do now, but I work hard still, but I worked an obscene amount hard, like sleeping in the shop, like waiting for pest control at 4 a.m. because you don't know what pest control is. You don't know what's the rules, what's permits, and those kinds of things. I gave a lot of myself to them. And I just feel like creatively it was starting to feel a bit, dull, and like I wasn't being able to create fully what I wanted as a growing chef. And they kind of gave this executive job to a new person and said, you'll have to train them. And I just felt my ego felt bruised.
No, of course. But I'm just a bit surprised.
And I was like, hey, Amjad, do you still have that job available? Well, actually, Gavin called me because, funny story, they had a chef, an Australian chef that went for training in Barcelona and had a traumatic accident basically and damaged his spine.
Wow.
He was 6 months bedridden in Spain. And Gavin called me, Carmen, I don't know what it's going to take for you to come here, but I can't see you for another interview. I've met you like 5 times already, like 5 conversations we've had where Amjad was trying to be like, in case you change your mind. And it was weird. Gavin called me on this situation. My ego was bruised about this situation in Oman, bringing a chef there to basically lead a little bit. And I was like, well, and I've just picked up Gavin's call and I was like, hello. He's like, Carmen, are you sure you don't want this job? Are you sure? Like, we've had a problem. And I was like, hey, Gavin, actually, come to think about it, I'll take that job, actually. Like, do you know what I mean? There was a lot of things falling a bit out of place for me.
Sure.
But I am truly grateful for the foundations that Leto has provided me with. I wouldn't be where I am without this.
I'm just surprised that the management didn't have the sort of foresight to get you in or get you on a training program or whatever it required for you to be doing that job. I'm just surprised by that.
Look, Leto was the first time coming, obviously, globally, like abroad from London. And they had 4 in London, but small. They're like small shops. And I think it's a total different, they're like 20, 30 seaters, like small. You go in, there's different rules and stuff. And the classic bring a restaurant from somewhere else in the world and you bring it to Dubai and it gets glorified, like it's now Dubai'd. I think that's the term. And that's basically what it was. And I mean, I loved it, but because it was family owned, there wasn't like, you would think there were more things inside. And I think right now it's obviously massive. So it's much more advanced probably now and has those layers. But initially when I started, it was me and the owner, like, and a team, which actually was my GM. He was amazing. He taught me so many things to be just like a bit more centered, more calm, a bit more also paperwork friendly.
Right.
Let's just say admin friendly. I had a lot more responsibilities. Like if the fridge broke, I had to find who to fix this. Like, you know, like I was thrown into a deep end a lot of the time. But yeah, like you said, they didn't. I just felt like I was just like, no, it's time. I feel like I've done my time in Leto, and I feel like I did good things. And you know, when you know a little bit, you know, you like, it was sad. I was really like, I thought I would have stayed and grown with the company, and like it has an amazing future. But a part of me was also like, I'm new here. Why wouldn't I take another experience? Like, why wouldn't I push my creativity? And when I looked at the food of Brunch and Cake in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is not really my style at the time, but I loved it. It was bright, it was colorful. The way that you have to really push your brain to be like, how can I make this thing within our ethos, like healthy, no nasties, like, but still make it so vibrant and colorful, like, oh, you know, learning to use spirulina to color stuff, because all I knew was blue food coloring, really. So when I got to Brunch and Cake, I was like, wow, I really learned a lot from the founder himself, because he was so vegan and like a health fanatic. He had that experiences, even though he wasn't a professional chef and I was. But that exchange of knowledge, of that, he gave me something I didn't have, I could then create within in that, like I don't know, barriers basically. Like, we need a salad, and then he would draw the craziest picture and be like, I need you to make me something that looks like this, and we would collaborate. I'd be like, that's not possible. You know, that's Instagram, right? You know, that's like AI, or like that's never going to happen in a fast-paced kitchen. Like, that's going to take me longer to plate that thing than cook it. You know what I mean? So we could kind of mesh our ideas and creativity together. Like, how can you make it operationally friendly, but also have it within this crazy? So that's where he kind of fueled that energy, and I felt like that came back into life, like the crazy young Carmen that just tried to throw everything she could find together, and like crazy tastes and like things that aren't what they're supposed to be, basically.
But I think, but now, I mean, look, Brunch and Cake is a phenomenal brand.
Yeah.
You know, you've been there for some time.
Yeah, like I just celebrated my 5th anniversary now.
Which is amazing.
June.
And how many openings?
Oh, quite a few. So I've done 4 in UAE, if I'm not mistaken. 4. And we've got another 2 coming up this year. We have Nakheel coming up in September, and we have Montgomery, which we're building now, which is going to be I think it's going to be one of the best sites we have to date, in terms of visuals, in terms of like the idea behind it. Quite exciting. I can share a little bit, but like, you know, I think there needs to be a little bit of a surprise element, but it's going to be amazing. And then, of course, opening UAE and then running UAE, I kind of then naturally grew as the business grew. So Amjad and I always laugh, because I always say we're like husband and wife at work. Like, we want to freaking murder each other now and again, but we have such a good like understanding of each other. And like, he lets me be, really. I'll be like, I want to create this thing, and he'll be like, well, let me taste it. And then he'll like, you know, be like, oh, I don't like this. And I'm like, oh, no, I need to work on it more. I have a nice freedom within Brunch and Cake. And anyway, now we've got two in we've got two in Bahrain, with a third one coming up in September also. I've got Egypt 3. I just came back from the third opening in Egypt. I have KSA 2. And then I have India coming, which will be a rapid 3 as well. Like it's going to be like very quick. And then the next ones we're looking at are Asia. We're looking at entering Asia.
So you're going to be super busy.
Yeah, and then right now at the same time, I've just developed a brand new concept for Brunch and Cake called Olas. So Olas in Spanish is wave, basically, and it's bar Brunch and Cake. So we want to incorporate elements of Brunch and Cake. So if you look at Brunch and Cake, it's supposed to be a very chilled, although I know when you see it on Instagram, it looks very like fashionable. But actually, we really encourage people to come in your flip-flops, nice shorts. Like it's a chilled actually place for everyone. Families, not families. Do you want influencers? Not like, you know what I mean? Like anyone can come to Brunch and Cake. But yeah, kind of.
Wow.
It's been.
But the other thing which I wanted to sort of ask you, which not everybody gets the chance to do from a chef's perspective, is that you recently had the opportunity to work with a megastar.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to lie, Tyra Banks.
Yeah.
Now, of course, she was here. How was it for you to be working alongside someone who has such a high profile? And when I think about the models who were coming up through the 90s.
Yeah.
Tyra Banks was one of those where you knew who she was, but you thought she was a bit of a diva.
Yeah,
you know? Even though if you didn't know anything about her at all, you still think, you know, she's a model, high profile, TV, all that kind of stuff. How was it to work with her?
I will say really surprisingly like pleasant. She still does look, she's not a diva, but she does give you that badass bitch, businesswoman.
Right.
I had to work for what I wanted. I'm not going to let anything stop me, which quite made me it inspired me, because I think I'm a lot like, that's how I want to be, like
driven.
Right. Doesn't matter what's in your way. If you want it, you can get it. Like she's very much like this, and she's very passionate about her ice cream and everything. So it was great. Again, I had freedom. Again, like we had to incorporate a couple dishes because we were the first partners to kind of launch it here. And then, so we had to make some dishes specifically for the ice creams and how it incorporated into the food. And so we had special dishes for Smaz and Dream, which was great. I mean, that was a challenge because there were some ideas that seemed, impossible to achieve, but also I was the one who made those ideas. Right. So I made it really hard for myself because she inspired me so much that I got so carried away, like to the end where I walked away going, smack on the head, Carmen, how the hell are you going to make this? Is this even culinary? Like, can this even be done? Like how? Anyway, I came up with some crazy ideas and it was great. And yeah, I loved it. And then, of course, we did an exciting little TV thing together.
And how was it for you to sort of go into a studio environment? Because you know how kitchens work. You've put yourself through a lot of pressure previously. And by this stage in your career, you know how to run kitchens. You know how to talk to people, all of that sort of thing. Yeah. But nobody ever prepares you to sort of cooking or being featured in a live studio environment on TV. How was it?
Hard. Really mentally, it was mentally harder for me. First of all, you saw me coming on here. I was like dripping some sweat a little bit. So I do get in my head a bit and this is the funny thing, like my husband also says, he's like, you always freak out. And then when you get there, you're like, you've been doing this all your life, basically. I just always psych myself out. So I was putting myself through this trauma. I was like, okay, remember, don't say like a lot because before when I went on radio, my whole thing was like, oh, and oh, and like this, and when I heard it back, I was like, do you have nothing else in your vocabulary other than, oh, no, and I think I used like a lot instead of dropping some other words in there, like the swear words. And then going on TV, of course, they like, don't say this, you've got 5 minutes, you need to go in, out. So like the pressure, you're like, I don't even know what's going on. And then like 3, 2, 1, and I'm like, like in my mind, I was like,
because you're not in control, right?
No, I'm not in control.
Because there's also an executive producer running the entire gaff, basically, right?
Yes, and they give you the whole rundown in the background. Like, you need to stand here.
Yeah.
Okay, you have only 3 minutes. This is a quick, we're live. It's quick. You have 3 minutes to plate 3 dishes or 5 minutes to plate 3 dishes. Of course, I went prepared with everything.
Sure.
It wasn't a live cooking experience.
It was more plating per se.
It was more
right?
plating and more giving light to launching the ice cream, basically, and how great the ice cream was.
That's with Tyra?
That was with Tyra. That was with Tyra, so that was even more nerve-wracking because she's a
used to
person.
it,
Yeah, she's like a TV star.
Yeah.
And no, I think I did good. Watching back, it's quite funny, the whole TV thing. I looked at my makeup, I was like, this looks awful. Sorry.
They have to do it though. You have to put the foundation and the blusher and all
honestly,
of that, right?
and like I was like, oh, this is great. When I was doing my hair and makeup, I was like, I could get used to this life, just like make me a TV star, please. Anyway, but then it's so nerve-wracking when you go on there. And in the end, there was one specific scene that Amjad was like, Carmen, it was so cringe. I kept adding sprinkles to this one dish, but I had obviously I was nervous and I wasn't even realizing how much of the sprinkle. And I was like, the idea is just to go wild. And I kept saying on TV, go wild. And he's like, stop saying wild. It's too much. You going to throw that whole jar of sprinkles out on this dish. And I was like, okay. And then I cut and I was like, honestly, I was like, what did I just say? What did I do? It was like, it happened so quick that you feel like, I was like, I had no recollection of what's just happened.
But the thing is, you were...
Tyra Banks was hugging me.
Which is, okay, so that's a win.
Yeah.
Number one.
And they put me on a little step next to her. So behind the table, you can't see, but I'm on a step.
But she's super
because
tall, no?
I'm here for it. I'm
super
by
tall.
her. Yeah. So short. And I'm short.
But I think it gives you an immediate sort of education and school into what TV life is like.
Yeah, 100%.
Also because it's not all glam. There is a huge amount of pressure, and the time management when it comes to TV is also nuts.
Yeah, 100%.
It's full on.
The second time I went on TV, I was a lot less frantic and I was a bit more calm, but I had a different role, so it was all Arabic.
But so they had in your ear?
And my ear.
Okay.
I didn't understand anything. I just stood there going...
But still, amazing to do it.
Yeah. And then when someone would translate specific words, I knew that was my cue to mix something or add something. And we were advertising, not advertising, but we did a feature, they asked us to do little Brunch and Cake segments and feature the signatures and stuff like that, our top dishes. But I was a lot less... I was more calm. And even then, I kind of took over. It's a different personality comes out when I'm under pressure. So I just kind of spoke English and I went for it. And then the girl's making jokes and Arabic going, she's just taking over the show, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, I've had great things with
But the thing I wanted to ask you now, Carmen, is that obviously you've been in the region for some time.
Yeah.
And let's not kid ourselves. You are the global exec chef, an incredibly senior position. You've won awards as well for the leadership that you've done. But what would you say right now have been sort of the biggest challenges within your job role? For example, is it the hiring? Is it the level of skills required? Is it more to do with the admin? Is it more of the fact that the region is more of a culinary hub, so the expectations are bigger? What would you say?
I would say I think my biggest challenges, I want to say like, okay, hiring was kind of a challenge in the beginning, especially when I grew into this global role. There was a lot of mental things that were going on in my head. At one stage, I was like happy, and then I wasn't happy, and then I was constantly just tired and exhausted. And I was like, is this what I want? Because I was really coming out of the kitchen, to say, like where my comfort was, like
Safety net.
my safety, like being in the kitchen, and then like it becoming really admin driven and like, oh, SOPs and this and that. And like, okay, I had SOPs and I made documents for my kitchen because that's what I wanted to do to have the best kitchen. But now then doing this on a global level, that people are going to start using these SOPs globally, like that's insane. Like, and then like, I'm like, oh, I can't even spell most days. So, I mean, I better use a word check. And then getting tired, like, and then feeling, I don't know if the right term to use is a bit of imposter syndrome.
Yes, it's the right.
Where you feel like that, what, you don't deserve this, or like you feel like, oh, I just had a bit of this like imposter syndrome for a little bit, until I was like, just snap out of it. You've worked actually really hard, because I don't reflect much on what I've done, like at all. Like sometimes when I sit back and I'm like, wow, I've really done like actually some cool stuff. Actually, I've like really actually worked quite hard, but I never give myself that credit. Actually, I'm quite hard on myself. But I think for me, hiring other executive chefs and thinking that you will be judged because, well, because I was, for other markets, I was like looking at CVs, and I looked at my CV. I'm like, these people are like 10 times more like, why do you want to work for, like, honestly speaking, I honestly thought when I looked at some of the CVs, like Michelin star training, Michelin star this, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what? I love Brunch and Cake, but what? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to put like a negative light on Brunch and Cake, because of course, to be honest, anyone is lucky. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great place to work in, but you kind of start thinking like, but this isn't the brand for you. Do you know what I mean? It was really hard to hire people because I was getting so many CVs, and I was like, well, I would love to have this person on my team. But then I was like, oh, I might lose my job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this person looks crazy more experienced. And like, with time, actually just interviewing people, and then even putting people that I thought are more experienced than me in an interview, having to ask them hard questions and things, you start realizing they're also just people, really. They're also just...
And they're also nervous.
They're also nervous. They're also just people of like, you know what I mean? But in my head, I'm like, there's no way I can hire this person. They'll literally take my job. Like, I really had this feel. I was like, how am I interviewing people that are like, in my mind, 5 times had crazy worldly experiences? Like, I interviewed this one guy that was like, I've traveled the world, I've seen it all, I've done catering here, I've worked with this famous person there. And I was like, and eventually I was like, something must have gone, like, like, you've had these experiences and you've had this crazy thing. And I would just always think like, I mean, I'd love to have you in Brunch and Cake. You're going to have like the world's most experience for this brand. But I always used to ask them, why do you want to work for Brunch and Cake? You've got like crazy experience. And I used to say to them, to put myself at ease, going, I feel like you've got more experience than me. I feel like you should be interviewing me for a job, not me interviewing you, basically. And then you would hear of their stories of like some struggle that happened, or they've lost a lot of things. And then, so hiring was hard for hiring other executive chefs, knowing that like I wanted a young, vibrant person, but also older, also maybe someone that I could learn from, because I love learning. Don't get me wrong, although I did think like, holy shit, I could lose my job for hiring someone that's probably 5 times more experienced than me in my head. I was still like, oh my goodness, I would look at their CV and be like, I'm going to learn this. I can get that from them. I can basically use it as a teaching to better myself for Brunch and Cake. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
So the hiring processes was hard, because at times I couldn't understand why they wanted to work for Brunch and Cake. And sometimes I went to interviews where they were really shocked that I was interviewing them. Like, sorry, like, is someone else going to join us on this call? Kind of like totally underestimate, you know what I mean? Like, who's this young female sitting in front of me? And like, a lot of the times they're like, oh, will the owner join? I'm like, no, there is no one else joining. And they would kind of be like, oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Basically. Anyway, so yeah, it was like, oh, okay, guess I don't want to work for Brunch and Cake.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's just these things that you have to put aside, like eventually just work through it. And now, after like a year and a little bit in this kind of role, it's steadying itself out. Look, the admin, like, I do get that it is part of like our work and stuff, but it does get to me sometimes. It does get like, I feel sometimes like, can I even still boil an egg? You know what I mean? Like, because you're now on a development level and you're traveling. I do love traveling because that's when I'm training. I'm in the kitchen. I'm cooking with the guys again. I'm feeling like a part of this team, you know what I mean? So, So I do feel like when you do end up growing, it feels a bit lonely sometimes. In a way, you have to truly motivate yourself. You can't. I always was learned I had hardcore principals, chefs, like influencers that were always like, no one is going to tell you every 5 minutes, good job, that, like, you know what I mean? You have to want to do this for you yourself. And like, I don't know, I just was like, Carmen, you got to put your big girl pants on. Like, you're getting in your mind, you're making things more complicated than what they truly are. Just go with it, have fun with it. Like, and that's now in this last like couple months, like I would say the last 6 to 8 months, I've really been finding it easier, the transition better. Like, you know, the passion is coming back and I'm like, yes, now I can make a schedule, you know, like I know November, like October to November, December, it's season, I'm developing, because anyway, you're not introducing that many dishes at that time because we're rammed.
Right.
And then like for summer, you know, okay, it's a bit more quiet. Like, this is going to be the time where I want to roll some things out because you have time to teach people. They have time not to be overwhelmed, and you can kind of prep better in the summer, I think. But this year's been quite hard. We've been operating like we've been like in season.
Yeah, it's been full on.
It's been full on still. Like, I'm like, when is the sales going to drop? And I'm like, yay, it's not.
But look, the other thing I wanted to ask is, how do you see the future of food and beverage in this region?
How do I see the future? Well, depends. Like, I think for me, look, a lot of people are now working toward the sustainability. I think that's a big factor. And to be honest, like, I love that way of thinking. I think I've taken a lot of inspiration. I think the future is going to be sustainability. 100%. I think it's very much going into this direction of less waste, less this, be more cautious. Like, to be honest, I've even thought of ways of like, I want to really start having herb gardens and Brunch and Cake. Like, how can I contribute more to what the future looks like for me? But I do think that future is going to be moving into vast sustainability, you know, less meat eat, like, you know, I think it's definitely going in that direction for sure.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And I think...
and you can see people are really getting to that. Like, because I've mentioned vegan a lot, but if I think of like vegan of what I think vegan is, and now that I look at vegan food, I quite love it actually, because I feel like it really tests me, especially in Brunch and Cake. We have vegan options, but it's like dirty vegan, and I like that. I like it like, oh, can I still have a burger but like healthy and it doesn't have this or that? Or so I just think like people are getting way more creative. Like, fermentation is a thing now. You know what I mean? I love fermentation. I've really do love those kind of like slow processes. I've always been a fan. And I like doing that at home and stuff. Like, you know, I really do like my own sauces and this and that.
But you know what? I think it's really important. Like 20 years ago, you were saying about if somebody was vegan, you'd be like, well, here's a ribeye. But if you seriously now, like being vegan is, as a chef, it's not that difficult anymore. You know, because you do have options and you can be creative, and there are some incredible innovations in the market, right?
I agree 100%.
So I think it's quite an exciting time. And a lot of chefs who I also speak to, they have like their vegan days, or they have these super cool vegan dishes when they're pushing themselves with fermentation and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really cool.
So I definitely think that's going to be the future. Fermentations and like, I think really like I see that a lot, and I don't know if that's just what I see, basically, algorithms in my life. But I do think sustainability, being more conscious about like earthly conscious.
Yes.
And I think that's definitely going to be like the future for what I think, And
the other one, Carmen, I wanted to ask you is, you know, the reason why this podcast was made is because food and memories, and also about how people are connected through food. Now, in your bio, you did say that, and earlier on you said it just makes you quite emotional when you think about that aspect of food, because whatever is going on in the world, whatever enemies you have, you can actually find common ground upon a table. Why is that important to you?
So I think this is like really important. Like, first of all, I love people coming together. I think because of like my past and stuff, like, look, my mom's obviously a single mom, was divorced. Of course, I had like a step family and things like that, you know, not like the greatest people. But anyway, we had that. And I had some sense of like, not a great family, but there was that sense of family. But I always feel like that is always what I wanted to do. Like for me, just seeing like you said, didn't matter what was going on in the background. There was, for me, I love cooking. Like from young, I was in the kitchen. I mean, to be honest, like my dad had like a massive gambling issue. And that's actually why I saved all my own money starting my business, because he decided that, well, he was going to steal all that money and basically spend my intuition on other things. But I always didn't have that real sense of like togetherness. So that's what I want to create. You know what I mean? Like, although I had a family, yes, and like, look, my brother basically raised me. And that's the only time I have that sense of family, when I'm with my mom, my brother. My mom is remarried now to the most, I always say, you should have been my dad. Like I always say, Ronnie, you're my real dad. You know, he is a great father figure. And also when we together, we're a family. It's not his family and our family. And so that's always like been a part. I want to bring people together. I love, even when I walk through the restaurant and just see people laughing and eating, and you're like, how did Avon toast make people so happy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how did scrambled eggs and like, how did food, just any food, like, it's just such a common thing for everyone to, like you said, like, we all can find common ground around a table. I think as most points in your life, I think when there's food involved
100%,
and your mouth is full, you're not talking too much.
But there's so many stories.
And it brings you joy, honestly.
Exactly.
Honestly, like, I think earlier I was getting a bit emotional when I was like speaking about my journey, like a little bit, because I think this is the first time in a very, very long time I've actually had to say like kind of a story a little bit, like where I've come from, things I've even forgotten, like when I was like, you know, my confession earlier about my bio. But when I was actually writing it, like rewriting it a bit, I was like, whoa, this is really like a bit intense. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know, just food in general, bringing people together. That is literally like, it is my dream to have a concept where even like the kitchen is in the front. Like, I just want to have this experience where like people can see you cooking, but then you're also giving them the food, and like a big table with like 20 strangers on a table. Or like
It was like a kitchen table.
Yeah,
sort
like
of thing,
imagine
right?
us all sitting here and experience like a chef's experience, you know, like you go for well, at that time I didn't really know what a chef experience was,
But family style.
But family
Right.
style, big, like people just like, you know, having a big leg of like lamb but having something else that also people want to know that it's an experience. But I always wanted to have my own herb garden and whatever I was going to put on this family table for people to go. And then supper clubs became famous in
goodness.
COVID, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
And I was like, oh, I've missed this whole train. Like, how are all the dreams that I want to do? Why are these people ahead of me? I don't get this. I don't like it. I had this dream 5 years ago. Why are you doing it?
Wow. Well, look, Carmen, now we've come to the quick fire round of the
goodness.
show. So I hope you're ready. I've
hope
got
so.
some beautiful questions for
goodness.
you. The hardest question for any chef. What's your favorite ingredient?
One ingredient?
Well, it has to be one. Has to be one, I'm afraid.
One ingredient. Oh, that's so hard. I like all of them. One ingredient. Oh, no, I don't want to say butter. That's a bit generic.
Butter's a good one.
Oh, I mean, I love butter. I mean,
there's a lot of chefs who like butter, by the way.
Cream, but no, I just feel like everyone loves butter.
Dairy or butter?
Oh, can I say cheese?
Cheese.
Oh my God, I
Alright,
love cheese.
Done. All right.
Meat as well? Oh, no, that's
Not yet,
that's
not
too-
yet, not yet, not yet. So, are you pickled or spicy?
Spicy pickle.
Now,
Spicy pickle. I can't choose. So I'm just going to,
now because your
Pickle.
husband is British, I had to do this one.
yeah.
Braai or barbecue?
Well, thank goodness he has a palate of a 5-year-old, so bra for sure. When I met him, he was eating chicken nuggets and sweet potato fries. And that was it. I basically opened up his world.
Okay, fair enough.
I've opened up his world to so many things, such as rice. Or you can put ingredients with rice, you know. No, yeah, he's... Shame, love him. Shame. He comes from not a... He doesn't have a choice. It's bra.
Very
Bra.
good. Now, brunch or cake?
Brunch.
Yeah.
Can I admit that?
Now, when it comes to right now, this moment in time, what would you say are your top 3 cuisines that you love to eat?
Oh, okay. Asian. Definitely do love Asian styled foods. Especially now, more recently, like, I do love a ramen, you know, like, but I love like all the different influences of Asian styles and flavors, and whether it's a Thai curry or I keep knocking this mic, sorry, whether it's like a Thai curry or like I don't know, like Chinese, or like I quite do love the Asian cultures and things like that, the flavors, the umami. And then I would say, I have to stay true to my roots a bit. I must say I do. Is South African a cuisine? No, I don't think so. Like, I think it's international.
Getting there, though. Yeah.
It's international of a lot of inspirations, I think, which
Yes.
we've made our own. But I do love a milk tart, well, actually milk tart. And I love a potjie. I must say, like, to stay true to my roots, a potjie is something, again, that brings people together. You basically have 5 beers and you forget that pot's inside of a sand hole. And you just come up back 5 hours later, you're like, I've got the most perfect stew, basically.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then the third one, this is tricky. I want to say I love French because so much of our influence is French cuisine and stuff like that. But it's not really like my top favorite. I must say I do love Spanish. I love things with spice. I love things like with flavors and like, I like, you know, what they have to offer. Like they do have those like pickles, the sauces, the, you know, like so many different layers of flavors and things. Like I do love a Spanish like styled cuisine. I love a paella as well.
Okay, done. Who would you say are your top 3 culinary heroes?
Oh, I
And
was
they don't
dreading this.
necessarily need to be chefs.
Okay, I was kind of I was like so nervous because I love so many different like inspirations and chefs for different parts of my life, basically. Like I have to stay true to myself because I think what really truly inspired me is watching Gordon Ramsay on TV, watching Nigella, like, you know what I mean? I always used to think, oh my God, Nigella's so hot. Like, she's like, ooh, and mix this, and like so dramatic about everything. And Gordon Ramsay, that's always just so like, mix this and chop. Like, even till today, when I watch him on TV, I feel so like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
But then I would say a second kind of a person is not going to be a chef. I think really I have to give this one to like my uncle and my brother, both massive like inspirations of mine that's constantly like pushed me and like just pushed my buttons, like quite freaking annoying actually, but they always pushed me like, oh, I can do this better than you. And I'll be like, no, I'll show you, I'm going to be the best. And also just giving me the basics of what, just having those experiences as a kid and things like that. And then I had a second one, which is probably also my first. I would say first would be Heston Blumenthal. I have a crazy story about a little bit of high school journey. But anyway, I did all my art project around a Heston Blumenthal kind of a thing. But I love his way of thinking. Like, I'm like, why am I not like, you are insane. Like, people hate you, and I like that because you're doing crazy things. You're making...
He's amazing.
Honestly, he's so amazing. Like, I do love him, and I've always aspired to be like making wacky things. Like, oh, people must eat this and it must look like this, but actually could be something else. Or
He's really amazing.
Yeah,
and
he's
you should
amazing.
talk to
He's
Tom Allen, who's working.
I know. I'm like, why couldn't I have your job, mate?
We'll get you there, staging. Now, from all of your experience within hospitality, what would you say has been your funniest ever kitchen incident that you've either seen or been involved in?
I had a few kitchen incidents, but I was like, oh, which one am I going to choose? Like, some of them were really funny, but then I was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to actually be a funny story. I would give you a funny one. Can I give you two quick ones?
Yes, of course.
So I'll say one funny one about me is, of course, you heard me saying a little bit, I was rebellious when I entered chef school. So the ones we did like a crazy hard service, and it was like after a Sunday, and there was a little pub just down the road that we all went to all the time. And anyway, it was kind of near to my birthday, and I decided, well, we were going to get really a bit, go out and have a great time. I ended up getting locked out of chef school. Basically, I couldn't enter. I had to jump the fence. I fell down trying to jump the fence, broke my little baby toe. and then I still forgot about the second gate. So I ended up sleeping between the main gate and another gate where the parking lot is. I just slept outside the whole night until 4 a.m. when the principal opened the door. I got into get upstairs now, because I was in boarding. I was like in-house boarding at chef school. So, and the rule was you finish 5 o'clock, whatever, 6 o'clock, curfew is 10:30 sharp. Not 1 minute after 10:30. Not actually, you should be there at 25 past 10 because, if you earlier on time, and if you're on time, you're late, basically. And so that was something really funny. And then I had another crazy experience about someone that made a really accident on themselves in the kitchen. Nice. Basically, I had to change their underpants.
Nice.
I mean, in hindsight, is it actually funny? It seems quite torturous.
Well, you got to go, but not in the kitchen.
No, this. So basically, it was like in Cape Town, basically, and we were like in a crazy service, and I was like on I was doing pastry, but I would also help in the desserts, and you know what I mean. So I was also developing and doing the pastries, but I was also in the service. Anyway, it was a crazy service. And the chef was like, chef, I need to go to the loo. The chef's like, no, we have like 50 tickets. This guy's like, and I also felt like I'd do this little dance because like I was like, oh, I also need to wee basically. But he was so hardcore. The minute he was like, fuck, you're going nowhere. You stay there. And he was on the hot grill.
Oh.
So he had like all the like steak, medium, steak, this, 5 steaks coming up, blah, blah. And because it was also like a bistro cafe, like a bistro restaurant. Anyway.
So fast paced.
He eventually says to the chef, this is not a number one. This is not a number one. And I'm like, oh, I guess you should let him go. And he's like, no, you're lying. You just want to go for a smoke break. I know that you want to go. Suddenly, you just see him. I'm like, I can do the steak for you. And obviously, they all looking at me like, oh, this girl can't make steak. Like, what? Anyway, he's like, I need to go. He didn't make it. Let's just say he shut himself. He literally, not in the kitchen, but definitely running.
Jeez.
And he just had to go home and
Poor
basically,
guy.
Honestly. So it's kind of funny, but it does show you like how crazy sometimes the kitchen can be, like how hardcore.
Pressure.
Even my bladder is not the same, and I'm 32. my wees just like, they just come, they just there. Like, there's no more pinching involved because of all the pinching that's happened in like hotels and like 20-hour shifts and
that's
crazy stuff.
When I used to work for Ramsey, we would literally, it was always 18 to 19 hours a day. And we would drink a little bit of water, and so we'd get in 6, sometimes, sort of 6-ish. And once after service, so lunch service would be 180 covers.
Yeah.
And we would literally go take a pee and then back in.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't go again until we finish service. So it's like, it's the pressure, and you don't even think about it.
No, you just don't,
So
like in that rush. And sometimes like, even if you are like, oh, I need to wee.
Yeah, but
like,
you don't think about it. You just like...
It just goes, it comes and goes, and you just pinch with all your might. You're like, oh, have the strongest blood in the world.
So...
Anyway.
Which leads us nicely into, what advice would you give to any young chef who really wants to push and develop themselves into the industry?
I would say any young chefs now, don't be afraid, but also know what you want. Like, I think being a chef, like, look, we are influenced with many things now. Like, you have Instagram chefs, and like you have so many different people coming out now. But I would say be fearless in what you want, and just go for it. But also be serious about what you want, because I think you give up a lot being a chef. Like, personally, for me, like, I know it doesn't have to be that way anymore, but when I was coming into the industry, it was hard. Like, it felt hardcore, to be honest. It was like no Christmas, no birthdays, giving up family stuff, prioritizing your career as everything, as the end all and be all. So I think be serious about it, be sure about it, but when you are sure about it, be fearless. Like, just go for it, and sky's the limit, I would say, is my advice.
And what advice would you give to 16-year-old Carmen?
I wasn't part of the questions on the other part. I'm joking. 16-year-old Carmen, what advice? Oh, that's tricky. I don't know, 16-year-old, oh, that's hard. I would advise myself, I would just say, I would have liked to be a bit more fearless. I would have liked to actually, obviously I went to chef school, but I would have loved to submerge myself a bit more. So the advice I would give to 16-year-old Carmen would be the same advice I would give today. Be fearless, because I wasn't that fearless all the time, because I did feel bound by certain things, like financial things. Sure. But I do feel like that shouldn't have restricted me. I should have been hungry. I should have been more active towards my dreams. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
although I was very innovative, like trying to bring things into my life, but you know, you don't know how to run a business. Go and talk to an older person that, you know, has a business. I don't know, you know, like I should have used my mom's network a lot more to educate myself, is what I would say to 16-year-old Carmen.
So then, from a social media perspective, Carmen, if anybody wanted to sort of get hold of you, how can they do that?
Well, you can, obviously I have a phone number, so you can WhatsApp me. Don't email me, I'm useless at emails. But obviously, you know, LinkedIn, you can get me at Carmen Landsberg. My Instagram is DXB, yes, chef, at DXB. So you can get me there, basically. And yeah, my number if you have it.
Done. I'll put all of that in the show notes, except your number. I won't put that out.
Oh yeah,
okay?
please
all
don't.
Right? So, but Carmen, I just want to sort of have a recap of what we've gone through, because it's just been amazing and extremely extensive, which is fantastic. Going from your childhood food memories to all of the things you were doing growing up, also having that super early business at the age of 16, which I think is amazing, to then going straight into culinary school, to then, you know, going from Durban, a small little town, to then big metropolis, which is, you know, sort of Cape Town. Obviously the casino, which I think is quite cool that you did that. Then your first head chef's job and the struggles you found, but then finding your feet along the way. And then, of course, coming to Dubai, landing that first job, and then, of course, going into Leto, which you did that for 3 years, which is quite amazing. And then, of course, Brunch and Cake and all of the things that you've achieved along the way, especially with Brunch and Cake. On behalf of the Chef JKP podcast, number one, thank you very much for taking the time to come in, because I know you're extremely busy.
Oh no, thank you for having me. I was extremely excited, honestly.
And number two, please keep going. Please keep inspiring. Please, you know, go beyond and be fearless, because that's who you are, and we really want to see much more of what you do.
Well, thank you.
And really keep pushing forward. So thank you ever so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much. It was great. I'm Carmen Landsberg. I'm the group executive chef of Brunch and Cake. And if you love this podcast, if you like it, make sure you're following, you're sharing, you're subscribing, and you're doing all those crazy things, because you don't want to miss out.